Collision Course is back. Schedule will be on Revolution Radio every Saturday night, 6 to 8 p.m. You get outer space. You get honest answers, real researchers, truthful answers, and a place to engage with questions. Take part in the discussion. Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com hosts Collision Course every Saturday from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific Time.
I'm Reverend Medium Tracy Lockwood, and I'd like to invite you to join me as I discuss life from a medium's perspective. I'll be talking about insights that I've gained through readings, with topics like your guides, angels, animal communication, past lives, our transition, and the afterlife. We'll take a deeper look at the metaphysical meanings of symbols and totems, and I'll give you some practical exercises to help you develop your own natural psychic ability. Join me on From a Medium's Perspective.
Do you or someone you know suffer from poor circulation, shortness of breath, or chest pains? Are you looking for a more natural solution to help overcome these problems? People tell us that after just a few months taking Extendivite, their doctors have noticed unexplainable improvements in their overall health. For more information, visit heartdrop.com or call 1-877-928-8822.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
And tell them Nighthawk sent you, because if you call this number and tell them Nighthawk sent you, you'll get $5 off your first order at extendivite.com. Thank you. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Well, it's time to stumble down the road with host Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff and co-host Jenny Vaught as they carry stones, dig holes, and wield their shovels along the way. On Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. This is not a seated event. As they talk, run, stumble, carry, dig, drag, laugh, fight, sing and pray, dance and kick and scream, and oftentimes fall. Hey, is that a stone or a buffalo chip? Now, here are your hosts for the next 2 hours on carrying stones and digging holes. But I won't be there.
The hell I won't.
Everybody, this is I think I've got feedback, and I'm not sure how to straighten the feedback out.
I can hear you without feedback.
Oh, you can? Okay, that's good news. It could be all in my head. No. All right, so this is Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff, Carrying Stones and Digging Holes radio show. My radio show is on Saturdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can find information about my show, bio, and also contact information if you go to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Click on schedule and click on Studio A, scroll down to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time where the B is. If you click on that, then there's bio information and you can contact me. Also, while you're there, you may want to click the funding link and see all the amazing ways that you can actually fund Revolution Radio. And since we are listener supported, we all show up and volunteer our time to bring shows and information and whatever else that we do for you. So please support us in whatever way feels good. Okay, so lately I've just kind of had some trouble with trying to get guests on and also getting guests to show up. Which happens, life is really stressful and there's just a lot of stuff going on, I think, internally and externally. So I'm not taking it personally and I'm not in any kind of anger, any way, shape, or form. But because of it, I get to spend time with one of my favorite people, Lenny Thyme. So I've got Lenny Thyme on. And also I have Mark Steele in the UK on the back burner. And he is going to come on and share some stuff as well. So, but that will be later on when he gives me the Skype signal that he's ready.
Cool, because I have some interesting technical challenges in that my power went out about an hour and a half ago. And so I'm limited on how much interaction I get by how much charge this tablet will hold. But it's over 50%, so I'm pretty sure we can get 2 hours in without a problem. But it could be later on it is a problem. But what sort of bioinformation do you put on the internet? Do you put your DNA code on or your current weight for your height?
No way. No, yeah, no. No, I don't put any of that kind of information up.
That's bioinformation, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I guess you would be right. So, I guess it would be
biographic, not biological.
Yeah,
but
not biological.
Biological is something that, as a chemistry guy, I've been studying a lot. And you, as a Red Road walker, live with the biology, so you've been studying it a lot. And we've come to the understanding that nature has a consciousness of her own and that she can follow things through how things work. And it's only at human scale that we get tied up into governance and money and issues that don't really matter because nature's solved them on an intuitive scale. And it's like if you have a herd of elk like we do, they were out here in 40 Drove the other day. It's not like the guy with the biggest antlers. It has paid everybody to follow him and act cool in his gang. It's that he's developed a relationship with the rest of his pack that the individuals trust him to lead the group to where they're going. But he's not necessarily choosing where they're going because they're on their regular migratory route to go through different places. But he's the one who's aware that somebody with a shotgun moved in a mile away, and so they're going to need an alternative route to keep their herd intact. And it's those sort of decisions that aren't anywhere close to what we live in human scale nowadays. And so the whole function of what it means to be a person means dealing with different concrete realities on different levels and not getting them mixed up with each other.
Yeah, another thing too I think about a lot is when you're talking about animals. I mean, that's kind of like pretty much what Eckhart Tolle, his whole work with New Earth and Stillness Speaks, and what was the other one? Something Now. I forget what the other one was. Power of Now. Yeah, so that's what all his work was based on too, was when he had his mental breakdown at Cambridge College as a professor in mathematics. He walked to the closest park and basically took up a bench indefinitely, became a homeless guy. And he said one of the things that he started to notice and watch was how the animals didn't really have a time schedule. They didn't really commit to what we commit to, and how unnatural and how out of sync human life really is, and that the birds would eat when they were hungry, not because it was their 12 o'clock break
Although they knew it was 12 o'clock because people came out, and then when the people left, there was a lot more to eat than there was before the people came out. So they
Yeah.
do get, animals get acclimatized to
Yep.
human scale clock, but I don't think they run on their own clock either. And it's funny that you should mention Eckhart Tolle because he was one of the people who I really based the new way philosophically on back when I was having troubles in 2009 and 2010. My existence depended on listening to Eckhart Tolle and Krishnamurti both talk about the philosophy of where they found themselves in, because I had really decided that materialist wasn't going to work for me. And now that I'm a chemist, and chemist is based on matter, and I'm not a materialist, it provides some true cognitive dissonance for everybody who looks at me and thinks they can read me. How can somebody whose life depends on matter not be a materialist? But the energy and the matter are hooked up in a way that we've been taught E equals MC squared. And that's only because everything else was approximated to zero. And when you bring it back into reality and realize there's a bit more to the transformation of matter and energy, what you find is that frequency matters, and that the frequency that you resonate at is proportional to your acceptance of how time works. And I'm not talking about time, oh, it's 10 o'clock, it's time for digging stones and carrying holes to come on television. Wait a minute, I said that wrong. Digging holes and carrying stones to come on radio. You see, that's where I'm getting into the cognitive dissonance now, is that the reverse concepts are coming out at me. How would you carry a hole or dig a stone? It's easier to see digging a stone than carrying a hole. But the whole reality of what's happening isn't the reality that we've been brought up in. It's a reality that has a distance from that reality that I'm going to call a fractal transformation. But in a fractal transformation, it goes from 100% to 50% to 25% to 10% and then fades off.
Right.
So
Hey, so I'm kind of hearing some clicking noise on your side.
the only thing I have here is I've got rain.
Oh, okay, we're good. All right, then I can hear it on the roof. So I'm like, what is that? Sorry, it was like I just had to find out what that noise was.
Yeah, because I have no power here at all right now. And so I'm not plugged in. There's nothing juicing. There's no motors running. But it did start raining a little harder.
Okay, well, that's cool. That's a good noise.
It is. It's a calming noise. And Eckhart Tolle, after he came back and started speaking, was the slowest speaker in the world next to Krishnamurti. And I realized that the reason they spoke so slow was because their frequency was such that we perceived it as slow in what we were hearing. They were talking normal on their scale of time. And that we're running into problems with our understanding of time because we don't have the concept of time travel down. But you know how we are. We're just human, and we get ideas by watching other humans do things. And so I was out off property earlier this week, and I spent 28 hours over at my friend Phil's place. He's the audio amp designer, and he and I get into some really good conversations on the physics of reality. So we were talking about the concept of cartoon physics, stuff that is allowable in a cartoon to a cartoon character, like Wile E. Coyote stepping off a cliff and he falls. But if Roadrunner steps off that same cliff, he doesn't fall. And so we decided we'd allow alternative reality in that sense, under, if it can happen in cartoon physics, it can happen in real world. And then he turned me on to a television show called Future Man. And we binge watched 10 episodes in a row. And we started at episode 18 and worked our way to episode 26, the current one. And these are future time travelers dealing as humans in now with scenes and events that we would have never imagined in future time. And in the episodes that I watched, I didn't go backward in time until I went to the originating episode. And the guy won a video game, beat the 87th level. He still lived in his parents' basement and didn't have a job, didn't work. All his whole life was to beat the video game. And so as soon as he beat the video game, two characters from the video game materialize in his living room or his bedroom and say, okay, we've now got our grand hero. Come on, we're going to save the time continuum. And he's like, wait a minute. But they take him away and they think he's got all the abilities of his video game character. And in truth, he's got none of them. He's just the player who played the game and reacted to the scenarios. And so now there's a television show of him going in and reacting to these scenarios. And the first scenario was the moon landing. And he had to stop one of the people he knew from the lab that he worked as a janitor at from picking up herpes because of the way the storyline went. And storylines are such that you have to suspend your disbelief to take the storyline up in the first place. So now we're on 2 layers of suspended disbelief, and they come in from the future, pick him up and run off into the past and change events of the past so that now they're going to be in a time loop. But I caught that in season 2, not season 1. I only went back and watched that pick up at the end. So very entertaining show if you ever get stuck in front of a television and need to binge watch something on Hulu.
All right. Yeah.
Interesting effects of television, though, and how it distorts time. And so I started thinking about how time works. And if you take a deep breath and you get yourself into a deep grounded state, you have as much time as you need to get whatever you need done. And it doesn't matter if you need 10 hours or 10 seconds, you can get to a 0 point energy and have that all happen at once. But when you come back to the scale that you were on, when you slipped into the scale of time to do things have changed their pattern, and the reality's not the same because the stuff you missed out on actually had an effect in the world. And so if you can imagine hopping worlds that each have their own different time perspective and are not in a continuum, then Earth is just another one of those worlds. And each time we recreate, we have to figure out which scale we're on and then work on that scale. So the fact that you and I are talking here on the radio show means that we are working at the same coincidental scale, and I sort of consider that to be the Mayan scale of 26,000 years. And so if we're on a scale that's going that long, we're on a living Earth planet and we're creating something new in a form that will be there for quite a while, but isn't the fractal of reality that we currently have experienced, because that fractal is going away. 50% of the physics has changed, but which 50% we haven't resolved yet? We have to take everything we knew and weigh it again so that we can see whether we can still believe it is true or not, because humans have the ability to create truth in their own mind. And so other people have different truths than the truths we believe, and having a common truth amongst relative truth is what sets a timeline. But now there's several timelines in motion, because the timeline that we're on is not the timeline that we were on, and whether we're on a new time or a continuation that's a tangent of the old time, I can't tell from this perspective. It hasn't resolved itself yet, but I'm pretty sure that we are beyond the apocalypse of Earth that everybody think is coming, but we better get used to a simpler place of being, because a lot of the technology that we have is either going to go full scale into the AI stuff or full scale opposite the AI stuff. But the AI stuff, I don't get it. And the AI stuff is not a frequency that I can handle, because the 5G stuff just doesn't work for me. And so I think that there are different worlds that haven't resolved yet, going to different places, because I do believe there's a 5G reality, but I think I've managed to escape that reality, whereas Mark Steele, who's coming on later, still is in that reality, and the two realities haven't teased themselves apart, so both are concurrent at the same time. So we really do have to pay attention to problems caused in different realities on coincidental timelines, because there's other people who have a different reality from the one we have, and we're not all there yet together on the same page. How's Jen doing? You said something earlier that she was having some problems.
Yeah, well, I wanted to go to something else really quick, kind of like a brief story about like timeline shifting. And so I was going to these groups that was this really old shaman type practice that went back to like, civilizations that disappeared supposedly, or whole populations like Aztecs and stuff like that. And so it was based on certain types of work on different levels. And I remember when I left a particular workshop, I think it was like in 2000, I'm going to say 2009, maybe, I don't know, something like that, 2010, maybe. Anyway, and so this particular workshop that I went to, and so it was down in Pasadena, and so I stayed down there 3 days. And it was the moment where that immediately after I left Pasadena and left the workshop and started driving on the road back to Reno, I could tell that everything that had been in my world before either had left, and that showed up, like, especially when I drove into Reno, when there were buildings that were gone, and then in some places there were new buildings. And I had called one of the people that also attended this specific type of ancient work, because there was 400 of us or whatever doing it together, right? So we were generating like a huge amount of power at one, intention, right? For 3 days, and all the facets of it. But anyway, so when I was driving home, I noticed that I was still in this world, but it had changed to a great degree in 3 days. And that's when first time I ever saw, and it wasn't temporary. It was officially, I didn't wake up and things had been changed back. It was completely and totally changed from that point on. And that's when I saw, what groups of people together can do to change, certain types of things. I think my movie set kind of haphazardly changed when I got back. I didn't say, well, take this building down or put this building up. I think that you probably could when you get to a certain level of dreaming construct. But yeah, you can change things to a great degree. And that's also when my healthcare changed, because I started having these, people at one point in time on this planet. They were human, but they, through shamanism practices, like 30 and 40,000 years ago, they moved everything, their bodies and themselves, and went into a different world and built their whole world. Like one of the beings I work with, he was Asian in descent. Where he takes me into his office, where he lives in his world, the world that he's constructed, he has an apothecary, and he does a lot of ancient, let's just say Asian type medicine arts. And so he'll do different things to me when he takes me over in there. And this was also a byproduct of doing certain kinds of work that shifted and altered reality, kind of a thing. But yeah, so this is a crazy story. So on the way back, I stopped and camped from this workshop, and I woke up in the bed, and I was laying on my side on the bed, right? My right-hand side. I woke up, but I hadn't opened my eyes yet, and I could feel that my hips and legs were levitated in the air and twisted a little bit, right? And so I went to open my eyes, and I felt this gentle hand kind of push down on my chest and said in this sweet, kind voice, surrender. So I decided not to fight against it. I wasn't going to look and see what was there. And then I relaxed my body, and then the being twisted my whole torso in a specific way that it actually snapped every single vertebrae in my whole spine. And it took me like 5 hours to be able to just sit up and walk because, I had kind of some pain, and it was an intense experience. So that's at that point too, when I was working with a lot of those people, and we actually altered the timeline and reality. That's when I also started getting a lot of people that live in other dimensions that were human, that were shamans, and did old practices and went to through the timeline into their own world and have created their own world, and they still live there. That's when they started, the medicine ones started approaching me, was during that time frame. So they had to alter my physical body for me to she had to help me alter my physical body in a way that I was going to be able to deal with the changes in my world. Because when I got back to Reno, I was a little bit shocked. But anyway.
Yeah, I had some of a similar shock because there was buildings that weren't there the last time I was out in that direction. And I don't think it was that long ago since I was out in that direction. But I know that there's a lot of change morphing the landscape, and that this store, Dollar General, has suddenly become a frequency pitch where every small town in America now has a new Dollar General, it seems. And it's like, okay. So we're fast shifting a change in reality at the high frequency. And you and I, who deal at low frequency and grounded and calm, are starting to see things that are not of the timeline we're normally on. But it is the timeline we're normally on. It's just that there were two different shifts that happened, that timelines diverged. And the first one I caught immediately, and the second one I'm not sure when I caught on that there was one, but that first timeline shift was the day we did the broadcast last week, when I was supposed to take a trip, and that trip didn't transpire, and we linked the trip that I was supposed to take to a reality where I actually did take that trip. And so something went on in reality that left you and me outside of the standard reality because I took a trip and didn't appear on your radio show last week. But I did appear on your radio show last week for everybody who's on the reality of the timeline that you and I now share. And then there was a secondary shift that took place Tuesday or Wednesday. And I don't think that the realities are going to converge back into each other again. I think that there's 3 primary baseline realities, and one of the primary baseline realities detached from the other 2. And I'm pretty sure that you and I are in the group that's on the other 2. And so we've still got 2 concurrent realities that are divergent, that haven't separated from themselves. But the third reality has separated now from our reality, except that all the cutouts, the NPC, the non-player characters, the people who aren't awake and aren't aware, and both awake and aware are criteria, those people are on a plane of existence that may or may not be linked to either one of the other 2. But a bunch of people went off with the link of living Earth and space, and that's a different reality than living Earth and apocalypse. And each one is their own different space. So we've been prepping for apocalypse. And last time we talked, our good friend Matt Stein passed away. And we talked about Matt, and we talked about the reasons of how Matt might have gone and what happened there. And we agreed on the conclusion that he probably was a victim of the MK Ultra system, which decided that he had turned far enough that he had to be taken out of the picture. And if that's the case, my version of what happens to be taken out of the picture is that you die in the reality of others and you're free to be on the timeline of your own reality. And that escapes you from the common threads of the there's a divergent set of timelines and a convergent set of timelines. And until you get separated from the divergent set, the ones that are coming together, you can't get on the ones that are going apart. But once you get into the world of the ones going apart, that reality has to be continuum with the reality that you had experienced before. So the Mandela effect was something that was happening in 2 different realities that we had consciousness in. And if we've separated into one or the other of those realities, and it's a solo, it has the possibility of either going extinct or birthing another reality.
Yeah. I think the key too is not being attached to a lot of the stuff, like the Buddha said, watch your mental attachments to everything. Okay, so anyway, I have Mark Steele, and Mark Steele's in the UK, like 10 hours difference, I think, and he's ready to kind of come on. So we're going to go to the 2D world. No, and we're going to bring him on. And he's getting ready to actually has a case before the court about 5G. If he wins this case, it's going to be huge, right? He's going to be able to actually shift on that timeline a lot of stuff, right, for everybody.
Well, let me give a prelude to Mark coming on, because he's a scientist, and from my background in science, I believe Mark knows what he's talking about. And so no matter how far out there he seems to get, I'm going to be listening and hearing what he has to say and seeing what the visceral reaction is, rather than interacting a lot, just because we have an opportunity to do something that I don't often have an opportunity to do, and I want to make sure I can measure it.
Okay, so I'm dialing, I'm adding Mark. All right, and I'm dialing him in. And mind you, it's really late there, so okay.
No, it's not that late there.
Let's see him.
It's 6:35 in the evening.
Oh, I thought it was going to be like 10 hours difference.
No, no, I'm used to working with people in the UK, and
Okay. Hey, Mark.
Aye.
Oh, hey. All right, Mark. We're gonna slide into the background and give you your soapbox so that you can tell everybody what's going on, what you think is important. I know that you're preparing for your court case. We're going to go ahead and give you the soapbox, and we'll step back and we'll just listen to what you have to say.
Brilliant. Well, what's been happening for everybody out there? The council take me back to court. They've decided that obviously I've been trying to warn councillors through the democratic process. In the civil case, I was actually told by the judge that I was to carry on the campaign, and also I was to keep informing the public of something the council didn't want, obviously in breach of your humanitarian rights, which the UK government is obliged to, and the council are signatories and tied into all of that law. So they're trying to gag me in this instance, said I was frightening people. They failed in that attempt. The judge said he wouldn't gag me, did tell me to behave myself, because I had actually been telling some of these councillors off, as I'm obliged to in law. This is illegal and unlawful. Section 3 of the criminal justice system, you can use reasonable force if you believe there's a crime being committed and it's to stop a crime. It's most certainly a humanitarian crime, and obviously I had been remonstrating with a few council workers about this illegal, unlawful activity and the equipment, this Chinese 5G weapon system that they rolled out on top of us. So they've went back to court, because obviously I'd contacted after the court case. I'd heard a number of rumours that the councillors have been gagged, have been threatened by the executive. It's an attack on democracy. It's an attack on this country, an economic terrorist attack by a foreign power. So I actually contacted all of the councillors and I made them aware that they, in action, they would be arbiters and abettors in this humanitarian crime. I got a bit upset by that, so they've then sent another. I had police at the door the other day. They've filed other papers against me to bring me back to court to try and once again get me sent to prison on the back of me. They stating that I've threatened them. It's an absolute, a complete fabrication, no different to the first case where they entered forged documents into the court where they perjured themselves. I mean, I had 11 council officers come to my home, each one either fabricated evidence, perjured themselves, or exaggerated the events. It was all shown in court. It's all for the public record, and that's the reason why they did not get the gagging order against me, because their idea was that I was actually frightening people. Well, unfortunately, if I tell people the truth and they get frightened, well, that's just unfortunate. But I mean, what I'm going to tell people, 5G is not telecommunications for humans. It is a weapon system. And I've got no doubt that's why some of the arrests around the world of some of the technology companies and some of the interesting information we start to see on the internet about some of the reactions to some of the information I'm putting out. MI6 have mentioned that 5G is a threat. The head of the Ministry of Defence and Minister Gavin Williams has stated that he's gravely concerned about 5G as a spying device. We have the arrest in Canada of a Chinese national to be extradited back to the US, etc. So there's lots of things going on about this, and people need to wake up. 5G is a weapon system. It is a dielectric lens. It's what's called a DEW, direct energy weapon. So the 5G antennas are direct energy weapons, and they are rolled out in your streets across most parts of the US, across a lot of parts of the UK, through councils who've decided that they just want to roll this technology out without any care, without any environmental impact analysis, without any public consultation, all in breach of parliamentary laws, European directives, etc. So they're totally outside of that comfort zone. They've broke about every law that you could possibly break, and obviously they're upset with me because I'm telling people. So unfortunately, telling the truth nowadays is what it looks like to be a crime. However, it's not, and this is Britain, and we have laws and we have a defence in law to this outrageous attack on our democracy, this economic terrorist attack with this technology that has no benefit apart from harming humans. So it's a pretty interesting position that we're in. So I had legal representation for a trial for the appeal to the criminal charge, where I warned councillors about this would kill babies. They got upset about that and got me arrested on, once again, another public order offence. And obviously these, what we're going to call them, snowflakes, because obviously if you look at them the wrong way, they get themselves a bit upset, and it's a defensive mechanism. I'm sure they've been trained to do it. So if anybody questions anything, it's all of a sudden they're a threat, they're terrified, they think you're going to offer them violence. I mean, this is the type of people we've actually allowed to be put into place in the democratic process in this country. It's absolutely unbelievable, and they're trained to do that, so they immediately go to the default, I feel threatened, I'm this, that, and the other. Absolute garbage. I can be pretty forceful, I can be pretty passionate, but I'm sure anybody who has somebody brings a weapon system outside of your home to offer violence to your community, you'll be pretty passionate about it.
Yeah, I think when I first heard about you, you kind of had been doing innovation work, right? You've been doing invention work, and then you were brought into the mix and found out about 5G, and you became so passionate about it that you're willing to step out of your behind-the-scenes comfort zone and actually start to rally people together to fight against it.
That's exactly, well, that's what we have to do. I am an
and a lot of the information.
Yeah, I'll Bridgette. Go on.
Well, I was going to say, because most of us knew something was wrong. Like when I see these cylinder towers with big cylinders on them, and I see all this other stuff going up that doesn't look right, but I don't have anyone to talk to about it. And when Mark Steele started talking about it, he was able to put it all in perspective. So most of the stuff that people are seeing, like on YouTube and stuff like that, is because Mark Steele decided to put on his cape and be a superhero for humanity and against 5G. So, and so Mark has been the leading expert of all the information that's being brought out. And the stuff in the U.S. looks different.
Some of this stuff in the U.S. look like molecular reactors, basically to gas people. That's what it is. It's a way of gassing the air.
Yeah, by suffocating them, right?
Absolutely suffocate you. Yeah, well, you can do that with enough energy. You can actually change the molecular structure in air, or you can actually positively charge air enough where it becomes toxic. And it doesn't take a lot of energy. I think you can positively charge air at about 34 electron volts. That's not a great deal of power. Some of these transmitters I'm seeing hanging on top of telegraph poles in the US look to me as if they are molecular reactors and extremely dangerous. So, people need to wake up. In fact, there was the Russian TV program, I think it was just last week sometime, Wednesday or Thursday last week, very large coverage of 5G and the fact that it will kill you. So the Russian TV in the US are telling people that 5G will kill you. I can actually attest to that because 5G is actually a weapon. It is not a telecommunication system for humans. It's a machine-to-machine signal. And if you got in the way of that signal, believe us, brain injury would be the least of your concern. This will annihilate all flying pollinators, all living life, all biological structures are affected by microwave radiation. I suggest anybody go and dig out that Russian TV. It was broadcast in the US. It was last week. Unbelievable. I'll come to my Facebook. It's actually on my Facebook page, Mark Steele. But also Anybody who wants to get up to speed on the technology behind 5G, there's a YouTube channel called 5G Killer Tech Mark Anthony. Say it again, it's 5G Killer Tech Mark Anthony. Go and have a look at some of those videos. That's the technical parameters. It gives you the information, enough information for you to go off and do your own research. So do your own research. Grundman weapons, direct energy weapons, and that's what's hanging on the top of a light. I mean, we have them on light poles here. We have 31,875 of these direct energy weapons attached in a very small area in Gateshead to street lighting. They are masquerading as control management systems, and they are masquerading. They look like a dipole antenna. They are not. They are high-gain dielectric lens antennas, and they only have one purpose: to phased array radar, so basically scan that environment and to pick out the target as target acquiring weapon system.
Yeah, so I just want to put out there, you know, like about 4G, and just like on a level that, you know, I get it. My dog, she's about 75 pounds. She's 9 years old. And I mean, one of the cancers was from the rabies vaccination that she got 6 years ago.
Yeah.
But the rest of them, the two of them have been, I'm pretty darn sure, from Wi-Fi, the types of cancers. So right now she's had a small tumor. We lived in an apartment building with 200 smart meters in the same building with, you know, all the 200 apartments. And that's when she got the tumor, was when we were living in the apartments. Now we're back out kind of in the desert, away from a lot of the 5G. But now I have her on, you know, a type of alternative cancer treatment I've used in the past with success. But just 4G, you know, can cause pets to be very sick, can cause children to be very sick. In apartment buildings, like you'll have 10 people that have brain cancer. And that's just from 5G. That's just from 4G.
Yeah. Well, the difference between 4G and 5G is actually telecommunications, where 5G is basically a weapon, and it's not 5 gigahertz. There's a lot of confusion about what 5 gigahertz is and 5G. 5G is a weapon. 5 gigahertz is a frequency. Now, a lot of the phone manufacturers start to give 5 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi signals. It's not 5G. 5G is a weapon. 5 gigahertz is a frequency wave. It's a higher data packet for your new mobile phones, new mobile devices, etc. A bit like 4G, just a little bit more dangerous, because obviously 4G is pretty dangerous, as you said. Pets with chips in, people with fixtures and fittings, anybody with hip replacements, metal teeth, you know, any sort of metallized parts that people have embedded, pacemakers, etc., they are all under significantly large amounts of risk due to the fact that these metal parts act as antennas in the body. So one of the reasons why the pets are all getting cancer, where they've been chipped. So you chip your pet, and what that does, it acts as an antenna for the radiation inside the pet's body. So that's why they're all getting cancer. Absolutely deplorable. And that's your basic 2.5 gigahertz from your Wi-Fi. So that's, you know, this is what's going on. So we've got massive amounts of sickness, diabetes, people who are overweight, people just basically sick from these signals. And now we've got 5G. And 5G, like I said, it's a telecommunications between a machine. It is not for humans. So consequently, I know it to be an actual weapon system. It's a direct energy weapon, and you know that by the antenna design.
So for you, okay, as an inventor, right? So I'm going to ask you different questions that I didn't get to talk to you about before. Like, I just learned something about the metal in the body. So now I know why, when I was living in that apartment building with all those smart meters, why my teeth ached all the time, because I have quite a few fillings. So once I moved out of that building, I'm kind of out in the desert, kind of living in my van away from, you know, as much of the Wi-Fi and smart meters, my teeth don't ache anymore.
Yes.
And so they were like antennas. So of course they would, you know, throb.
Yeah, you get your teeth throbbed. Yeah. Get enough radiation in there, your teeth will throb. In fact, I tell you what, it's quite surprising how robust humans are. But you've got to remember this exposure to this type of radiation, the damage will come in 25 to 30 years. So the epidemic's on its way. We already see that. We already see the rising rates of stroke, cancers, diabetes. Anybody that's going to think that they're going to live past another 10 or 15 year, 25 year, you've got another thing coming. And that's not 5G. 5G, once 5G is fully weaponized, fully operational, I believe 2021, somewhere in around there, it will kill everything. So, people really need to wake up to the fact that this is absolutely lethal. And we have a duty to act in law. Everybody has the right to defend themselves. We have to start defending ourselves from this.
So in your background, so you work with microwave radiation, you invent things and technologies and you kind of have a past history with it. So so I met the guy who developed the chip originally a long time ago when he was lecturing on the circuit about what he had created. The government stole his technology and they're going to use it to control populations, right? And that's not really what he designed it for, right? He didn't design it for that. He designed it for the most amazing, thing you could ever imagine, out of love and of helping people and out of goodness. So when you're doing your work, because I know you've said that certain kinds of this kind of technology could be used in a good way, and that's kind of like what you focused in on, right? Like your inventions and things like that.
All technology can be used for good. In fact, all technologies and all patents are based around the benefit of mankind. They're not there to harm mankind. So obviously any weaponry that you build, it has to be defensive. So obviously there's a defensive reason why you can patent things. And obviously a lot of weaponry is not patented. But my patents, my inventions are all, not all based in and around battlefield interrogation systems, but they're for mitigating these battlefield interrogation weapon systems. So I've got head-up display systems that protect people on the battlefield from this type of killer tech. So that's how I know what the weapon is, because obviously I've invented things to mitigate that particular radiation emission on the battle space. So that's how I know exactly what they are. That's the drivers behind it.
Right. So what happened? I just wanted to ask you, because last time I had you on my show, we tried to get that Leon, and we couldn't get him on. Like Skype stopped him from getting on talking about what was happening to him. And I think he got arrested or something.
I did get arrested. We had a march.
Can you give us an update about this thing?
Well, I had a march about this 5G about a week and a half ago, and some police officer took it upon himself to arrest Lee. I think basically to try and cause a bit of it. It was a false arrest. Just basically attacked him from behind. Unfortunately for the police, it was very well covered in the by video recordings, etc. It's basically a false arrest. So Lee's okay. He was actually at another march there today. He's met the same police officer, believe it or not, at a march in another city today. And the police officer has come up to him and apologised and have shook hands. And the police officer admitted to him that he was working on orders from others to basically cause a bit of an issue at the march that we were on. I mean, a completely peaceful march where we're trying to explain to the general public the dangers of 5G. We're trying to explain to people this is not what you think it is, and people need to start organising themselves and get this thing stopped.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking about. I watched this crazy movie on Netflix last night. It was called. It had Nicolas Cage in it, and it was called Humanity Bureau, and it basically is about a lot of the stuff before it happens in America. It seems like it only happens in America, and they use all kinds of weapons against the population, and they end up killing like pretty much all the population, and then they take all the trees, the water, there's nothing, and at the end they flee to the Canadian border and there's trees, you know. So they systematically wiped out people to steal all the resources in the United States. I mean, it was a trippy movie, but I look at everything that's going on right now, and that movie is not far off the mark.
No, not far-fetched. Well, I was talking to some people, US ex-military people, and they were telling me about these underground cities. And I said, you know, the elites, anybody who'd be stupid enough to go into an underground city with an organization whose ideology is to wipe out humanity, believe us, you'd have to be pretty stupid. And I mean, some of these very rich people are pretty stupid. They'd have to be, because would you go in the underground with people who are orchestrating the total collapse of the human race on this planet? Because
okay, hold on, Mark. We got a commercial, 4 minutes, but come back with that thought.
Yeah.
Okay, mute out. 4 minutes.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Hello, all you good-looking people out there in Revolution Radio. This is Mario. I invite you to join me Thursdays at 6 o'clock for This, That, and the Other. It's a show about you, it's a show about me, but ultimately it's a show where we try to have a little bit of fun. We discuss some quirky topics, and we do our best to be apolitical. So I invite you, put on your favorite pair of comfy sweats, your smoking jacket, and grab a beverage of your choice, and join me Thursday evenings at 6 o'clock for This, That, and the Other on Revolution Radio.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
From the astral realms to the physical plane, the halls of power to the walls of home, the multiverse to the innerverse, all will be haunted by the ghost in the machine. I am Steve Zerloff, the ghost in the machine. Mondays, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Studio B, exclusively here on Revolution.Radio.
This is Barbara DeLong, host of Nightlight Radio, inviting you to join me on a cosmic journey, exploring a metaphysical montage of spiritual material, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between, including spiritual readings for those who seek enlightenment. Let Nightlight provide you with equal measure of light, love and laughter, insight, wisdom, and inspiration. Monday nights, 10 to 12 p.m. Eastern, right here on Studio B, Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com.
Do you or someone you know suffer from poor circulation, shortness of breath, or chest pains? Are you looking for a more natural solution to help overcome these problems? People tell us that after just a few months taking Extendivite, their doctors have noticed unexplainable improvements in their overall health. For more information, visit heartdrop.com or call 1-877-928-8822.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
And tell them Nighthawk sent you, because if you call this number and tell them Nighthawk sent you, you'll get $5 off your first order at extendivite.com. Thank you. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hey everybody, hey, it's Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff, Carrying Stones and Digging Holes radio show on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And you can find my show and information on me, and also links to contact me on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Go to the schedule, click on Schedule A, scroll down to the 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and click on the B. Also, I always forget to tell people, I have a YouTube channel, Consciousness of Economics and Urban Farm Project YouTube channel, and I have a lot of playlists, and where you would find Mark's videos that I put on my favorites list would be under the disclosures. I have disclosure playlist all the way through disclosure 6 playlist. And so all you have to do is look through those on my YouTube channel, Consciousness of Economics and Urban Farm Project YouTube channel. And you'll be able to find all that kind of information. And I also do a lot of my own videos of information that doesn't get on my show. And also, and I always try to do really good with the links to try to find everything and everyone that I think, is important and valuable in this time period. Also, you can find Lenny Thyme. He's in the background while we're letting Mark roll with his stuff. And Lenny Thyme is a new contributor to Out of Mind. And Out of Mind's website is oom2.com. And then look down, you'll find a column for Lenny Thyme. Also, Mark Steele, Steele. You can find him on Facebook. He also has a YouTube channel, 5G, I think it's Killer Technology. And then also he has a website, Save Us Now, I think .uk. Anyway, Mark, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah.
Okay. Also, well, I just wanted to say a huge shout out to that amazing law enforcement agent that came to Lee to talk to him. So do you want to continue talking about that, how he came to him and said, hey, I had orders from above, and then go into whatever you were going to go into?
Well, the coppers basically admitted, that's what we call police officers here, coppers. He admitted that he'd been told to basically arrest Lee, which is a problem because obviously in the video evidence, this copper could lose his job. So this just shows how these police officers are being used and abused to carry out the orders of others when really they're putting themselves at risk to lose their jobs and their pensions. This is just unbelievable. And this is appalling, the 5G march. This is a humanitarian crisis we're talking about. We're talking about children dying here. We're talking about babies dying in the womb, significant numbers of babies. This technology will kill them before they're born. It'll damage them before they're born. And the radiation levels we're measuring in bedrooms now from these 5G transmitters is significantly higher than any building regulations and codes. It's significantly higher than the Council of Europe 1815 resolution, which is 200 millivolts. So we're measuring significant amounts. I mean, I've measured as much as 3,500 in a home, in a bedroom in Gateshead, where the LED TV was actually lighting up without it even actually being plugged in. So the energy coming in from the microwaves were actually lighting up the screen in this guy's bedroom. And I went down and measured it was 3,500 millivolts. I mean, unbelievable. They will die. These people will die. That guy he developed Crohn's disease. He can't go to work now. He can't leave his home. I mean, this is unbelievable.
So the other thing too is like, okay, so for listeners out there, you were saying on the show last time that it's so strong that it's breaking down concrete and wood, and so the infrastructure of our bridges and stuff like that, wherever there's heavy 4G and now 5G moving in. California has 5G all the way across it. So it's actually helping to break down the infrastructure and destroy the infrastructure and then turn it into fuel so it can become an exploding like instantaneous explosion bomb that levels whatever the area space that it's in.
It's exactly, well, it's basic physics. You're pouring microwave radiation, so pulse modulated, so you've got pulsing radiation energy going into an environment. It can break down all the fabric of buildings at certain frequencies. It can break down covalent bonding, breaks down the fabric of buildings. It can actually get materials to gas off. And 5G, where 5G is really dangerous, it is focused, increased radiation signals. So where you've got these beams, these steerable beam waves, where they're pumping massive amounts of energy into the environment. So killing all pollinators, all small birds, small-bodied animals and birds and insects, they die first. And then what you'll start to see big animals. And the exposure to this type of radiation, the peak epidemic could be 20, which don't know. But we're seeing deaths today. Since the rollout of the 5G in Gateshead, we've seen a significant increase in mortality rates from cancer, stroke, heart disease, coronary heart disease deaths, all increased since the rollout that we have, the government data that we have. And this is opposed to the national trend, which was still at the time going down. It's going up now, but this is data from 2014 to 16 when this technology was started to be rolled out in Gateshead. And the epidemiological data shows that, but now we see right across the country an increase of mortality from all these different diseases, because obviously this 5G is being rolled out. It's in operation now. It's not coming. It's here. I get sick of hearing this nonsense about it's going to be coming in 2020, 2021. No, 5G is here today. It won't be fully operational till 2021. That doesn't stop it killing people today.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong with the information, but that's how you found out about it, was that they created a gated community. So in the US, if I said gated community, I would say the elite, people that have money, and it's a private community that's gated, that people who can afford that level can move into those gated communities. I don't know if gated community is the same kind of thing, but they actually put 5G in there as an experimental. And that's kind of like how you found out about what was going on, because they were experimenting in this community that they developed, and that the people that moved in got really sick right away, like nosebleeds and all kinds of stuff. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly. We started seeing a number of children having nosebleeds, a number of people, becoming extremely sick in the area, mental health issues, children having fits. It was just absolutely unbelievable. And when I was measuring the radiation levels, we were starting to see significant amounts of radiation that would cause this sickness. So the whole thing tied together. unbelievably so. And, once we then started to investigate the camps, we found out that they hadn't carried out any environmental impact analysis, no human rights impact analysis, no environmental or health impact analysis. And the reason for that, it would fail. These technologies fail all the tests, they fail all the standards, all the guidelines. That's why they're rolling them out without due care and attention, because they will fail. They know they'll fail.
And so the thing is, like, for listeners out there, is they're targeting the rich people as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it's a property
gated communities as experimental rats.
Yeah,
Would you say that this is kind of like a precursor to a smart city?
This is the smart city. This is the smart.
Oh, it is. So gated community is a smart kind of community, gated community.
Yeah.
Wow, that's horrifying, because you think, the way that they put out a lot of this information and technology is like, you're going to want to live in a smart city because it's going to be awesome. Nope, we're just going to murder you like a gas chamber in your community, and we're going to do it fast.
Yeah, well, that's what the images I've seen in the US, Bridgette, they look like molecular reactors where they'll change the air constituents of the air so it become toxic.
Well, so I had a conversation with a friend of mine about, the 5G and these turbines, that they're putting in, these cylinder turbine things, which I suspect are the ones that are they suffocate the oxygen in people's bodies. And so we were having a conversation about it, and he just totally says, well, if they do that, if they suffocate your cells from the inside out, then there isn't going to be any blood or anything for them to have to clean up after, they wipe out whole neighborhoods of people. They can just simply come, not a lot of hazardous waste for them to deal with, and just buy.
Yeah.
I know that's like a horrible thing to talk about, but that's kind of what it looks like. Looks like it may be, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's unbelievable, Bridgette. I mean, honestly, I keep pinching myself and think how did we get here? This is just unbelievable. And like I said, I know a lot of people will find it unbelievable. Do your own research. Go and have a look at the Mark Anthony, the 5G Killer Tech Mark Anthony YouTube channel. There's lots of YouTube videos on there that break down what 5G is, what the plan is, the weapon system, the autonomous systems, the fires, and all the stuff that people need to have a look at. You only need to watch a half a dozen of them. They're only 5 minutes long. I don't do the laborious half an hour sort of videos. I do them 5-10 minutes because people can only absorb a certain amount of information. So you watch 5 minutes, then watch another one, and then you'll start to see what we're talking about here. All right?
Yes. Go there. That's very informative. So do you want to, it's up to you however long you want to talk, or that you have time to talk. I know that it's in the evening there.
Go there now, Bridgette. So what I'm going to say, listen, I'll sign off. We'll come back, but get organised. Get people to get organised. Get a look at the Save Us Now party. It's it's an opportunity to get rid of these criminals, because you get party politics getting in the way. This needs to be a party for all, and what it needs to be based on is the rule of law. The laws here are most certainly being broken. You're not allowed to break the law. Well, the elites aren't either. The law's there for everybody, and this is what we need to bring back into play, because it seems that there's a lot of people who just believe that they're well above the law. Well, that needs to be changed. So I'm going to have to sign off. So I've got a few other things I need to get on with tonight.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, thanks for dropping by. Just really, really appreciate it. And we'll send you a really good positive energy towards your court case. And thanks so much. Bye, Mr. Mark.
Thanks, Bridgette. Thanks, Lenny. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, let's see if we still have Lenny in the game. I see that he has his microphone turned off. Oop. Maybe he'll turn his microphone back on. Okay, anyway, so let's see. Well, we've got 45 minutes left in the show. So I'm just going to talk about until Lenny comes back, or I don't know, maybe even his tablet might have disconnected the electricity, so we don't really know what's going on. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to talk about kind of, in case people are interested, about Jin, my dog, right? Kind of pump up my healthcare work a little bit in my work with animals that I do long distance and in person. Traditional osteopath medicine for animals and people, which covers mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual, and basically takes you back through your timelines and what hasn't been healed or picked up to be healed by the brain or the body, or your spirit gets picked up. And so I take you back through your histories of what's created the health problems. So anyway, we're talking about two of the times I believe that Jin got cancer were because of smart meters, and being bombarded with, like Wi-Fi towers in our area. And then we've really been working on our health. We moved way out into the desert, so to get away from smart meters. And no, I do not live in a house. And no, I do not live next to a smart meter. And I limit, the Wi-Fi and things like that. So, but this time, so two times, first time that she got cancer was from a rabies vaccine. And I've since done a lot of research on vaccines, and your dogs may, need vaccines if they're not in a healthy environment, for, some of the viruses that they get in a communal. Obviously if your pets are around other pets, or they go into doggy daycare or other places, they're more subject to community disease and virus. But anyway, it turns out that the regular, rabies vaccine lasts for 7 years. And that's under, like the best research, doing a lot of research. I was going to be writing articles for, there was going to be a local newspaper, an animal newspaper, and I was going to be doing the alternative medicine column called "What's the Alternative?" And I was going to bring, information to the magazine of what people could do alternately for their animals and pets. And the same, things apply. 5G applies, Wi-Fi applies, and this radiation is actually, the smaller you are, if you're an animal, it's why it kills all the insects and birds, and even Wi-Fi does a pretty good damage. I mean, on the 5G network as well. So basically what happened after that vaccination, that vaccine was like 6 years ago, I think, or something like that, that we got it for Jin. Jin had all of her original shots when she was a puppy, and she's 9 now, and she's not really ever really around communal animals. And nature, maybe smelling, some wild turkey poop or something like that. So we do everything, alternatively. All the alternative medicines that I take, she takes. And I give her things like, there's a really good blend because she gets a lot of chemtrail, respiratory stuff. A lot of animals do. So I use a product called Food Science, and it's Aller DMG by Food Science by Vermont. And it has a lot of different stuff in it that helps with respiratory. So she gets her little tablet. I get my tablets. And like I said, treat her alternatively. So when she got the 3 tumors from the rabies vaccination in her neck, 6 years ago, that was when she first got cancer. And I started giving her a product that a friend of mine sells here in Reno called Two Feathers Healing Formula. I think it's like twofeathershealingformula.net. My friend Robert sells it. It's approved, authorized, and permission given native medicine that is still made by the original recipe of the tribe that this particular blend comes from. But it gets rid of every kind of cancer, all the tumors. And the best part about it is, when it's done, because the tumors will actually come out of the skin. The skin will open up and the tumors will come out, and then they'll fall off and the skin closes up, usually with no scar. And when there's no more tumors coming out, that's when you know that all of that kind of cancer is gone. Trying to think. So then last summer, Jen got skin cancer on her nose, because she's like light complected, and she's got, like sheep herder nose where it's really pinky. And but I used a product that I made with coconut oil infused cannabis, and I cooked down in a double boiler, the leaf mass off of a whole bunch of really killer plants. My friend grew marijuana plants, and then I cooked all the leaf down into the oil, and I used the oil on her nose, and it cleared it up in about a month. Just had to keep putting it on there till it cured the cancer there. And then she also had a different kind of cancer that I treated with RSO, and Lenny knows about RSO. I was going to have him talk more about RSO. I used RSO to actually treat her cancer, and it's like, I call it pot tar. Lenny knows what the name of it is, but you want it like, 1 part THC and I think like 3 parts CBD kind of a thing, and you take it internally. It's pretty strong, but it works really well on topical cancer and internal cancer. I do not think that we have a marijuana store recreational here that actually sells it, because I think that there's only a certain level of, what's in it that they can sell. So the really, high-end stuff that's pretty strong, I don't think that you can get in dispensaries here around Reno. Anyway, so now we're on the 4th cancer, which I think was, she got the tumor. We were staying a friend of mine's apartment last year and last winter, and that's when she first I started to notice the tumor in her gut, and I was pretty sure that it was attached to her lung. But I've been giving her the cannabinoid coconut infused oil internally at night for like the last 3 months to help it. And so I'm pretty sure that the tumor's bigger, and I'm pretty sure that it's on her lung. So, but I've noticed a huge difference in 3 days of her taking it. And the compound, the Two Feathers Healing Native compound, you could just put it in capsules. And then I put a little peanut butter around it, and she swallows it right down. So yeah, so when those tumors come out, we'll know that she's, cancer free. And it's interesting because, she's been around me, so I'm like an apothecary. And so she pretty much willingly takes just about, any of the alternative medicines that I give her, whether it's draw, any kind of form. She's pretty hip to. She's really good. She even, she trusts me, and I don't give her anything that I wouldn't take. So, and I like, I like products that I can cross over into her care as well, because it's less expensive. And it means that I always have stuff on hand for myself. So I'm always going to have stuff on hand for her. And, when I go out and work on animals physically, I try to encourage, other animal people and horse people, and, to move towards more of a holistic way, even, if they just take one step, because I look at it as, natural healing and natural medicine. And this is the, when I think about a lot of the stuff that's going on, hold on a second. Let me rate this. Okay, so anyway, okay, I'm just trying to see if, trying to figure out if Lenny's still with us or he's not with us. So, I was going to see if he wanted to talk about RSO. Anyway, his battery could have gone dead. Who knows? The whole show, I'm just kind of flying by the seat of my pants today from start to finish. Oh, I just totally was lost what I was talking about. So a lot of people right now, are making choices, right? So same thing with medicine. Okay, so your choice, with this whole 5G and 4G thing is you want to buy a house, so you end up, moving heaven and earth to buy the house, and then you're financially sunk into that house and that mortgage payment and whatever else. It's taken any liquidity and it's taken, your choices away from you. So, when you find out that they have 5G, like right outside your door of your house, and you have no money to move, and you have no options, and, even your options sound radical to yourself, like that's kind of why, I live in my van. Live in and out of my van is because I have to make the right choices, for my health first. I couldn't be a very good healthcare person if, I carried an iPhone. I don't have one. If I carried if I bought a car that had Wi-Fi attached to it so that it's becomes a microwave oven, I'm driving around my children, and my animals. And so in the mainstream, there's only a certain level of real health care, because if, doctors are participating in a lot of this stuff and ignoring a lot of this stuff that's going on, especially that deals with health, and they're not taking steps to step out of it, so that they can actually have real health, then you're not going to be able to have very many choices in healthcare either. So make sure that, you set yourself in your life up in a way where you can, okay, so Lenny's here. So anyway, Lenny can come on. But anyway, you want to make sure that you give yourself enough room and space, no matter whether it's financial, healthcare, your living situation, so that you don't throw all your eggs in one basket, so you can make another choice. You find out that you have 5G on your house, you pack up your family in a car. You find out who your relative is that lives the furthest away from, a cell phone tower, right? And you may have to put up a tent in their backyard for a while, but you're going to be away from a lot of those kinds of signals. And this other thing I realize is I spent, one of the things Mark Steele's talked about too is that the effects of 5G and even the 4G on people psychologically, it creates, in some people, it causes tinnitus that won't stop, like a buzzing and ringing in their ear. Can you imagine that 24/7?
There's a lot going on with
it also, yeah. So the thing is, you always want to give yourself space so that you have choices. So, you don't have all your money sunk into a house, so that you don't have any money in your bank, so that you can leave if you need to leave. You can choose to have different kinds of health care, because you don't play the health care game, so that you can open yourself up to more choices with health care. And also, being really picky about your healthcare providers, and how hip are they with a lot of information, and how do they live their life. For example, I have a friend of mine who's really old school chiropractic here in Reno, and he's really old school, he doesn't get on the net or anything like that. And once I hooked him up with what was going on with 4G and Wi-Fi and smart meters and phones and all this other stuff, he found his way to a book called Zapped, and he started reading about it. And now in his practice, because he doesn't really want 4G in his house or anything else, so he really encourages people not to raise their children around phones or Wi-Fi or any of this kind of stuff. So how good is your healthcare? Your healthcare is going to be on how good your healthcare provider is and their understanding of things, and how are they living their life. How do they do things? I would never work in a hospital at this point in time, even for the benefit, because of all the Wi-Fi that's in there. Like every person has an iPhone. Every time you bring in a different piece of technology onto those networks, you have cross lines going everywhere to all those networks. And most of the machines that they're using now in hospitals are all Wi-Fi, right? 4G signal based. So, how healthy can you get? While you've got a machine next to you that's, based on 100% Wi-Fi, and that signal going right through your body, and through the machine and back and forth. So life, we have to really think about what our choices are and leaving ourselves an opening and other possibilities in case we need to change our mind at the last minute. So I was going to see if you wanted to talk a little bit about RSO, because I was kind of telling people a little bit about the different kinds of cancer medicines that I use on Jen, and I was telling them that I have used RSO, but you know a lot more about RSO and how it works.
Yeah, RSO is really a weed extraction from marijuana, in which it uses solvents that take out all of the different CBDs and THCs and other different chemicals, but manage to not take out the chlorophyll-based chemicals. And so it's a potency that seems to work with the human metabolism well. And somebody who can take 2 ounces of RSO over the course of a 2-month period can instantly rid themselves of cancers. And so in small dosage, it's extremely healing. And I think it has a lot to do with the interaction with the endocannabinoid system. And that's a system they don't really teach a lot about in biology, but it's one that's been there for a while. And so to me, I think that the cannabis culture is going to create something that makes it so that RSO and those other cannabis derivatives, like what you're doing in coconut oil, become more and more distributed. But it really makes sense to make your own extracts and do it in butter or coconut oil or something like that. There's a lot of healing there, and while it might not cure cancers like concentrated RSO, it still does a lot of good.
Yeah, and so Lenny was living in Durango. I'll tell this story so I went through this crazy, I call it the 4-month-long vision quest. And this is when I really got to know Lenny really well. And because I was on the road and I kept crisscrossing right through Durango. So in a 4-month period, I probably stopped at Lenny's like 4 times, on my way back and forth, because I ended up going from Reno, kind of Northern California, all the way up and around to Idaho, Coeur d'Alene, Sandpoint, Idaho, then came back down. And then I stopped and see Lenny in Durango. Then I went, I think, to New Mexico. Then I came back to Durango. Then I went to North Carolina, and then up to New York, and then back around. And I think I stopped in Durango again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you stopped in Durango quite often. Then I stopped in Reno.
Yeah. But I'd stop there. I'd, take all the stuff out of my van. I'd get organized, do laundry, do all this other stuff and hang out with Lenny. Well, during that time, he was doing some chemistry work on RSO, right? And he was helping, to make it. So anyway, so he gave me, they started me off with a really small dose, a half a rat poop. And they always say like a rice kernel, but rice green, but it was more like, it looked like a mouse poop. And so they give me like half of a mouse poop. And so, I did okay. And then the next day we're going to the Anastasia site for the second time. I think were we going up there, or were we not? We didn't make it that day. So anyway, before we left, Lenny said, okay, well, we're, trying, my level of being able to this is just for health benefit. This wasn't for cancer. I wasn't doing cancer treatment. I was just doing it for a health benefit. And so what happened was that he gave me a whole mouse turd dose. And literally within 20 minutes, it hit me like a freight train, and we had to park the van. And Lenny's like all just kicking it, you know. And it's kind of a funny story because Lenny kind of looks like, you know, like a Grateful Dead kind of a guy, kind of throwback kind of guy. I mean, that's the way he looks. And here he is in my van. I've got Jen, and we've got a van, and we're driving. So at some point, Lenny asked me, he doesn't even have a driver's license. He goes, "Hey, you want me to drive you back?" I'm like, "Hell no. They see you driving this van, they're going to like totally pull you over." And so I had to ride it out. And literally what happened is that the RSO hit some memory in me. You know what I mean? Hit like this wall that hadn't been cleared or opened. And my body sent up a siren saying, "Oh God, oh God." And I probably went into the like craziest panic attack that I've ever had. But all I could think was like, okay, I've got to get over this. I've got to get over it. I've got to move it through. I've got to move it faster along because I can't be for 5 hours and us parked on the side of the road. I couldn't even sit in the van. I kind of had to like move around and all kinds of stuff. And I threw up a couple times and until I had kind of like totally moved past whatever I needed to move past. And I think I took a 5-hour clearing. I did it in like 45 minutes or something, or an hour and a half. But it's so funny because Lenny just kind of, he probably in one of his logs, he's probably logged the whole experience of watching me like totally running up and down this hill, totally freaking out. I think at one point I even went down to this place that they had like a zip line. And I went into the building and asked somebody, I just said, "Hey, look, I'm really sick and I need somebody who has a driver's license to drive. Is there any possibility somebody would help?" And they said, "No, go right next door to the police station." I was like, "Oh no, what?" I would end up parking on a road behind like the police station. Anyway, I wasn't hammered, you know, and I wasn't like totally hammered and fucked up. I just had this raging panic attack and I had all this emotional stuff going on and that I really had to deal with that I hadn't dealt with. And I had to do everything I possibly could in order to kind of get it down. And so Lenny was good support. Do you have anything to add about the RSO medicine hitting the emotional wall?
I had a different interpretation of what was going on. I don't think the Anastasi wanted us to go back. And I think they had put up a psychic barrier for us, and we ran right into it, and it hit you real hard because of the RSO, but not just because of the RSO. And that what we had done was we had gone to Mesa Verde the day before and investigated some of the caves back there where people had lived in the underground areas. And then right before we were about to leave, there was a different path going off to one side that would have taken us deeper inside. And we decided we'd go back the next day and do that path. And I think that path might have been a one-time only portal that we passed on because other things were worth our paying attention to. But you never know. I mean, sometimes you get into weird situations. Finding out the police station was right there where we parked was one of the things where I was sitting in your van smoking weed. So what's the best thing to do outside a police station? But they didn't bother us. I think somebody from that building you checked into actually came to check on us to see what was up.
Yeah.
You didn't actually go to the building. They came out and said, "Hey, you guys okay?" And it was like, "Yeah, we're just."
Oh, that's right.
To something.
Yeah, that's right. Somebody did out of that one building come and check on us and see that we're okay, kind of a thing. Yeah. No, and you know where we were gonna go when we went up to that Mesa Verde place? That was we did like half of it, didn't we? It was huge. We did like the first half, like the oldest part, I think.
Well, it's a whole lot of land, and it goes into the canyon. And we did the part that was the tourist space to do. And there were some places within the tourist space that you could see, like that big round circular thing that was with bricks, that it wasn't very high, but it was like a short fence. And you knew, sorry, something else used to go on here. And they projected that that might have been a granary or something like that. But
Oh yeah, and it was a total, like, underground. It would have been like, it looked like, an underground sweat lodge to me. But that one guy did say, remember that they suspect that people like live down in there. They could have kept it a little bit warmer in cold climate, but that they probably would have dried green in there, and that it was held, for some sacred activities as well. But the way that it was lined up, Lenny and I started noticing, like, a lot of the things that this area said it was. We were like, no, I don't really think that that's what that is. And then we ended going down into that underground area where they had built housing out of the rock. And that one had trippy energy, because you could feel the energy totally change as you were walking down. The energy was totally different. And then we were going to go to the petroglyphs that have the extraterrestrials on them, the petroglyph wall, but we didn't have enough time. It was already getting dark, so we were going to come back the next day. But it was a pretty intense day, don't you think? It was a trip.
it was, in fact, 2 days in a row. And it sort of got me off into a space that let me into thinking about frequency dimensions. And there's no question to me, there were people there that we would have run into had we gone further in instead of leaving when it got dark. But if we had gone in further when it was getting dark, we might not have gotten out, and it would have been a whole different world of reality. So one way of looking at it is we had a chance to go through a dimensional portal and didn't go through, and then it looked like we were going to try and go through the next day, and they couldn't have that. The timing wasn't right. And so all sorts of things can be created to explain behaviors that don't have rational physical explanations in the mechanism that we call time and space.
Yeah. But we had a lot of physical timeline stuff. I mean, it was like over an hour drive there and back, right? Yeah. I think it was like 40 minutes hike on this trail to get to that petroglyph wall, which would have been the next step into the next part of the park. And then, so we couldn't do that because it was getting dark, and then the park would have closed. But yeah, no, yeah, it was that trip. And it's really funny is that's when Lenny and I went up there and did all that, even though Lenny's roommate didn't really know that we went and did that. That's kind of like the period where Lenny and this guy's relationship kind of took a turn for the worst. So you may have had a massive shift up there.
I'm pretty sure I did. I'm pretty sure that it set me into a different reality, and that the realities that I go through are different from most people anyway, because I'm open to the power of suggestion and take myself down rabbit holes that other people may not perceive they wish to participate with. But, you got to be open to going anywhere that life takes you, don't you?
Oh, yeah. And that's the cool thing about Lenny and I's relationship is I think it's based on acceptance. And then the acceptance of the journey. And just seeing where things take you, for sure.
Yeah, right now I'm being...
Because you've been all over the place too during like the same time. Well, I was unadhered in 2006. So how long have you been unadhered? Were you...
2007.
Yeah, so you've been on the same kind of journey that I have, all over the United States, all over the place, and kind of homeless, and staying here for a while, staying there for a while.
Part of it is dodging shadows of your own mind. And until you figure out where you're at, you don't have a place to be at. And
Okay.
everything seems almost surrealistic.
No, that's totally true. That's totally true. Yeah. And also sometimes, things, one of the biggest lessons that I'm learning is that things don't happen really fast, and that sitting back and kind of, taking a slower process, like Lenny was saying at the beginning of the show with Krishnamurti, Kartoli, and how slow that they communicate, because they're seated in their own balance, which means that they're on their own time. They're in their own timeline, or they're in the now in the way that they need to be. And Krishnamurti is, above all, out there for listeners, is like my favorite consciousness person of all time. And a lot of people don't know. I wanted to talk about this kind of when we were at the first of the show, but when I found out the story, I was totally blown away by Krishnamurti. And basically, I think this is the basis of the story, but he also did work with, I think, Madame Blavatsky, right? I think that he was an early apprentice of hers as well, but he was basically sort of like kidnapped in a way. This is the story, and that he was being groomed. So it was a religious, church. I think it's like the Star Church or something like that did this over his life. They drugged him, from what I heard. They molested him. They did all kinds of, psychological stuff to him to preen him into believing that he was the second coming of Christ. So, I just want people out there to know that they've tried to create a second coming of Christ for long periods of time in different people, and it hasn't happened yet. So, Krishnamurti was like the last one, and so they kind of MK Ultra'd him and fractured him and all kinds of stuff. But he also was around some other people that were like, monumental in consciousness, like Madame Blavatsky. And what happened was when I don't know, 10,000 people came from all over the world to witness, the return of Jesus Christ, which was Krishnamurti. And he gave his 1919 speech, which you can find usually in most of his books, because his books he did not write. His books are all his speeches in text, of all the speeches that he ever gave. And so that's kind of how you can find his information. Anyway, in 1919, when the Star Church was going to release him, and they had been kind of advertising that he was the second coming of Christ, in the speech that he gave was probably one of the most conscious, mind-blowing speeches ever. And people were blown away, because basically he came out and said, I am not the return of Christ. You guys should not believe in organized religion, and lots of other really highly spiritually conscious, evolved concepts. And that's when he refused to be, he had reached a level of consciousness, above his captors. And that's when, he became free. And he later on, was living in Ojai, California, and that's where he died in 1983. So for me, Krishnamurti is, well worth reading, and it takes kind of a while to digest what he has to say sometimes, because it is, very conscious. And what an amazing person that I consider, him to be. Anyway, that's kind of my Krishnamurti blob. What do you got?
I got Einstein just crawled up on my shoulder. And so he's starting to purr. I came back yesterday from my trip, or Thursday, and I hadn't seen him for a couple days because he's moved into Peter's, because Peter keeps his house warmer. Or something here is some spooked. I don't know. But Peter said he hasn't been eating, so he needs to come home to eat. And so now he's trying to make up to me by giving me all this good purring. But he's having trouble with the linear dynamics, whereas Tripod has the linear dynamics all figured out. And so I think that Einstein must have gotten spooked one night. We had a fox here. We caught him on the infrared camera, the motion sensor at night. Real beautiful fox. But I think he spooked my kitty. And so now the kitty doesn't want to be outside. It wants to be an inside cat. And since I wouldn't give him an inside litter box, he moved over to Peter's. But I don't think he's actually eating and pooping and doing the stuff he's supposed to do right, because he's spending way too much time as an inside kitty. Now I've got both kitties on my lap, and that doesn't happen too often. I've got Einstein on the shoulder and Tripod on the lap. So I'm blessed with kitty purr behavior.
Some vibrational therapy.
Yep. Jin is one of the more spectacular animals I've met for really being tuned with healing vibrations. And she's such a good dogger. And so everything you can do to heal her with different cancer remedies is worth doing it, as long as she's not physically got problems like bad hips or stuff. But you said she's 9 years old now?
Yeah. Well, I always tell people she's the star of our show. Our road show. She's definitely the star. She's amazing. You know, I've had really good friends of mine who walk the red road, and also, you know, that, you know, have done really traditional lodge sweats and stuff. And I've gone and I've been asked certain times to do the fire medicine, and also carry the stones for the lodge, which that's my favorite thing to do. I'd rather support the poorer of the lodge, which is the medicine person and the people in the lodge. Well, Jin's the same way. And I have photos of her where she has ended up going and helping some of my medicine friends that pour. Because, you know, there's been some bad stuff or people releasing some pretty heavy stuff in the lodge, and she'll go and she senses it, you know, and she'll go lay on by the door of the lodge. And she really brings light. One time the lodge, you could feel like the energy, you know, of the people in there. There was some new people trying to release some big stuff that they'd been through. And so Jin went over and kind of laid there by the door, like protecting it. And this ray of light, it was totally overcast. It was pretty cold. It was up in Truckee. And it was kind of in the, you know, early winter or late winter. And all of a sudden the clouds opened and this beautiful ray of light, I have a picture of it, came down out of the sky right into Jin at the door. And that's kind of when I knew that she had kind of a ability and a talent, and she could carry, you know, energy for people, rainbow energy, light frequencies, them to help people heal, and that she's pretty badass. She's a warrioress too, you know. She's not like just a gentle healer. She's like me. She's tough, goes for the jugular, but gets it done in a good way, right?
He got along fine with Izzy the Wonder Dog. There was no problem there. As long as she stayed away from Izzy's food, Izzy was happy. And Jin had her own space. She could tell Izzy off, and Izzy would go away.
Yeah, no, Jin's a cool dog. All right, Lenny, so we got 2 minutes left. Where can people find you?
You can find me on steamit.com at Lenny Thyme. You can find me every weekday morning on Steampunk Radio on the 7 a.m. West Coast, 10 a.m. East Coast, 3 in the afternoon in London, 4 o'clock in Belgium. And we do Steampunk Radio, the New Way radio show. We've got a cast that we call the Way New Radio Programmers, and that's WKRP. So we're having fun with our crypto fiction realities. And Bridgette, you're going to be a guest on my show on Thursday, right?
I am, and I might be bringing a secret guest. No, it depends. It depends on if the secret guest has time. I just want to put in a little thing for Mark Steele. You can find him on Facebook, Mark Steele, Steele. And also he has a saveusnow.uk where people can sign up, and we're creating a anti-5G movement as a community for humanity, for the betterment of humanity. So you can go ahead and sign up there. And also you can find me at Revolution Radio freedomslips.com and go to the schedule, click on Schedule A, and you'll be able to see the B at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, carrying stones and digging holes. And you'll be able to click on that, and it'll give you some bio information and contact information. Also, you can find me doing my other work on Consciousness of Economics and Urban Farm Project YouTube channel. And then I also...
We're both on Out of Minds at oomt.com.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm Consciousness of Economic as the contributor. All right, everybody. Bye. See you next week.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
And I see a whole army of my countrymen here in defiance of tyranny. You've come to fight as free men, and free men you are. What will you do with that freedom? Will you fight? We will run, and we will live. Aye. Fight and you may die. Run and you'll live. At least a while. And dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
The future is uncertain. I know this. Death is inevitable. I know this. But one thing is certain, as free men, it is our right to live unencumbered and in peace. And those times are quickly drawing to an end. And in these times, peace is certainly an illusion, and as the chains grow tighter, our ability to slip those chains increase incrementally with every passing moment. Inaction is no longer an option. It's time to raise our voices like a cacophony of thunder and lightning and tell the masters no more. And this is Nighthawk, and I say, for myself, no more. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, because the freedom is slipping away. Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive.